The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Any rebroadcast, reproduction, or other use of this broadcast or podcast without the express written consent of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, or Spaced Out Radio Limited is strictly prohibited. Listener discretion is advised.
Hi there, this is Dave Scott, and I would like to invite you to listen Monday through Friday right here on Spaced Out Radio. 3 hours a night of the top stories with the top guests, ranging topics from UFOs to ETs, ghosts to Sasquatch, and everything in between. We are live every night, 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern. So come on in and take a listen at spacedoutradio.com. Spaced Out Radio will take you out of this world.
Sky with 6316, 8.8 for 6,000.
Got 6316, North Road, so maintain 3,000, I'm 1 for the right.
3,000, Sky with 6316.
Redwood 811, so maintain 4,000. Airport's open to box, 1.
Take you higher and higher and higher. You feel it over and over again. Take you higher and higher and higher. You feel it over and over again.
6 runway, Carefly, runway heading, runway 5. Let's take off.
Check.
And we are ready for takeoff. Sit back, relax. It's time to travel with Cosmic Passport. Spaced Out Weekend presents Elizabeth Anglin's Cosmic Passport. A 1-hour warm-up of news, stories, thoughts, and ideas to captivate your mind. You can follow us at spacedoutradio.com.
Now 20 years have passed us by, and we look back and count the time. Burning like the summer sun, when the world was young. Silently staring from the ground, and 7 trumpets wait to sound.
And now, here's Our Lady of Flight, Cosmic Passport with Elizabeth Anglin.
Good evening and welcome to Spaced Out Weekend on spacedoutradio.com. This is Elizabeth Anglin, your host of Cosmic Passport, coming to you from Uncle Jimbo's Paranormal Cabin, serving paranormal pancakes, paranormal banana cream pie, and a host of other goodies. Tonight, we are so happy to be here on our member stations. We love that you are tuning us in and not tuning us out, so we want to give thanks to Renegade Talk Radio in Las Vegas, UPRN 107.7 in New Orleans, Wolf Spirit Radio, and the High Plains Radio Network, Forest Moon Paranormal, and listeners coming to us from TuneIn and iTunes. And soon, we're also going to be happy to thank WQEE FM 99 Rock, broadcasting to Greater Atlanta out of Noonan, Georgia. If you are joining us for the first time this evening, please check us out on chat. If you go to spacedoutradio.com, there is a chat room there. We also have a chat room on Facebook called the SOR Space Travelers. That's our group. And if you love our show, please consider becoming an SOR Space Traveler. For just $5 a month, less than a large latte at the coffee shop, you can join the SOR Space Travelers and receive lots of cool stuff like free books, swag, private interviews, and newsletter, and the archives of all the Spaced Out radio shows, and more. Tonight on Cosmic Passport, we are welcoming back Richard Smith, the author of The Moor, the Mason, and the Alien, who has had long-term contact with a female being he calls the crone from a group of aliens known as the Vril. This is a multi-species, multi-phenotype group that work together. And I have been curious because Richard has talked a lot about the 3 different groups of alien beings who are working with humanity or working against humanity: the Vril, the Shetu Regime, and the elite reptilians. Now, for many of you who listen to Spaced Out Radio, we have a lot of people who do extraterrestrial communication, and we know that there are different types of different beings doing different things. But these are 3 main groups who have been working for a long time with humanity. And so I'm going to bring in Richard Smith to clarify all of this, because my head is just swimming. It's just swimming with all these aliens doing all these different things, and I just don't know if I can keep thinking about it without some more clarification. Richard, how are you tonight?
I'm doing good here, and thanks for having me back again. This is awesome. Yeah, it's wherever you'd like to begin there, let me know. I will clarify one thing right off the bat. How should I say this? In the book I'm working on now, which is going to be the follow-up sequel to the one I put out last year, The More, the Mason, and the Alien, I do get into a lot more in the new book I'm working on now with the female principle, the Vril power, feminine goddess energy, okay, a lot of that stuff. And get into more of that on that side there. In terms of referring to them as the Vril, that's fine, nothing wrong with that. I tend to more so use the word sisterhood in the book. Okay. And only because it's predominantly a female principle. Yeah, you'll find a few male members here and there. They're few and far between. It's predominantly a female grouping there. And they tend to act as kind of like, try explaining it in a way that everybody could relate to. They kind of act like a midwife between reincarnation, the galactic community, and basic human sexual reproduction there. And they tend to pay very close attention to the development of children, and they pay a special focus on gifted children, right. As they grow up.
And you talked about this with, you mentioned in your book, Jesus, or Isa the Christ, and what happened with him, that he was one of these gifted children, and there was a lot of interest by extraterrestrials put upon him. Can you explain more about that situation and their part in that? Yes,
and it's interesting because this actually ties into last night's episode too, with the issue of family. Okay, so it's cool that you brought that up. A lot of people don't realize that Mary and Joseph were actually the main players in this. When the child known as Isa was very, very young, okay, prior to the age of 13. And without getting into too much detail about it and going in the wrong direction with the conversation, the sisterhood is there to protect these kids, and they try their darndest to get to them ahead of time, because whether it be a Christ child or a Dalai Lama, a Buddha, okay, anyone like that, an Egyptian adept, the point is, when these children are born, both sides of the equation are looking for them. Okay, the ones that watch out for them and the ones that see them as a threat, and would have no qualms about turning these children against themselves. So I kind of point out in the book, if you want to put any stock whatsoever in the term Antichrist, it's really a paradox unto itself, because you're basically turning the child against himself. And early on, I mean, Jewish scholars can actually back this up, in that the missing knowledge, missing books that explain his early life, point out that he was having these severe, horrid nightmares. And they weren't just nightmares. It was an act of psychological war against the child. He was being shown his own death, all sorts of horrid things there that were going to happen to, that they wanted him to believe would happen to him in later years. And it was causing, as anyone would guess naturally, any mother or father would know, this is going to cause a big problem with your child's development, and how they relate to the world around them. Well, when it comes to Mary and Joseph, I mean, Mary, as most of the well-known women in history, she came from a well-to-do family. Okay, she was not the pious, poverty-stricken virgin that everybody wants to portray her as, and she carried a lot of clout. And Joseph was not some schlep that was dragged in off the street as a surrogate father. He was the actual biological father, and the thing that was significant about him was he was a master teacher and therefore a minor prophet himself. And this is why, he has this Christ child as his son, okay, because he was the master teacher, very much like an Egyptian adept. And he had this circle of relationships with all these other supreme teachers and master teachers, one of them being the one who is constantly misascribed as an angel, but was more in physical form and just beat the process of mortality that a lot of Tibetan monks beat. Okay, they are constantly strive to beat the process of death and achieve a sense of spiritual immortality, which can cause the cell structure to live for hundreds of years before any degradation occurs. And this master teacher, Gabriel, had achieved that. So, of course, anyone who achieves a perception, relatively speaking, of immortality is going to be characterized as something supernatural. And he had close ties with Gabriel. And this is why he went to Gabriel for advice. And Gabriel was like, get him out of town. Herod is nothing, the character referred to as King Herod was nothing more than your basic run-of-the-mill thug working for the bad guys. And he got wind that, a Christ child was in his vicinity. So he goes on this slash and burn policy of let's just kill them all, and trying to find the needle in the haystack. Mary and Joseph take him and disappear. And where they go, Gabriel had advised him, you can go to the master teacher in this safe zone in India, and that master teacher's name was Guru Master Ravanaji. Joseph knew him as well.
Okay, now I'm gonna ask you, where did you get this information from? Because other people are going to go out looking for it like immediately. Mm-hmm. So how did this come to you?
This comes from conversations with the crone, and then things I found along the way that I put into the bibliography in the back of the book to back it up. In fact, one of the things, many years ago, someone had actually come to me and said, hey, with what you're talking about, you should check out the secret, what's referred to as the Secret Life of Jesus, and then in conjunction with that, the Nag Hammadi Library. In which case, the Nag Hammadi Library shows Jesus talking about reincarnation just like Buddha would, because they both learned it from the same school of thought. And so Joseph takes him to, and you can also research Guru Master Ravanaji. He's a well-known, rich and wealthy prince in the history of India. Okay. And he was a master teacher. So there's different ways you can come at this from different angles to see it. And there's a slew of legends and stories that come out of India as far as Jesus is concerned. All right. Just as anecdotal, things in between there. But the place where Guru Master Ravanaji was a safe haven. The best description I would say is in the Highlander movies. Okay, they have this neutral zone where the good guy, the Highlander, and the Kurgan can't fight with each other. Okay, they can't touch each other. Well, in a similar respect here, this neutral zone that surrounded Guru Master Ravanaji, which kind of relates to what you and I were talking about last night, that, radius around us that's untouchable, all right? Guru Master Ravanaji had that. And this is why they brought the child Isa to him, so that he was in an area where he couldn't be attacked psychologically due to negative frequencies that were being projected at him. So the psychological warfare came to a dead stop, henceforth foiling, the agenda of the bad guys, the power mongers. And this is where he stays for all those years under the tutelage of Guru Master Ravanaji before he suddenly shows up on the scene again in his late 20s, early 30s, going at it there.
Okay, question for you.
Mm-hmm.
So, this is a very simple question. It's going to be easy to answer. The power mongers, the Shetu regime or the Shadow regime, they don't like these children who come in with the Christ consciousness or gifted children. Yeah. Why?
Mm-hmm. Okay, because whether you frame it as the Christ consciousness or the frequency that indigo children or super psychic kids operate on, okay? Mm-hmm. It represents an awakening, an instigation to awaken the third eye in everybody else around you, okay? Right. And it's an inspiration. I mean, just from the perspective of civil rights, a Christ figure or a civil rights leader or a teacher of the masses, these are inspirations that start instigating and agitating and making people think. And it's just like, the other 80% is going to wake up, because nobody cares about what the 20% talks about. It's whether or not the other 80% is listening. That's where things get interesting.
So you can have a controlled fire, but you don't want the whole forest to burn in the flames of inspiration, because that takes out your corporation.
Exactly.
Takes out your business interest. Okay. And the other thing is, it's also a frequency. When you get enough of these people together, just by being around them, other people tend to match their frequency. At least I would think that would be a big part of it,
Exactly. Yes, and then, it's also a child like that has to be given time to be taught the art of, for lack of a better term, the art of psychological warfare and how to defend themselves. Frequency, harmonics, spirituality, frame of mind, psychology, emotions. It's when you're coming under attack. I mean, you have to learn what this really is and remove all the hocus pocus and the ooga booga superstition and realize what you're really dealing with. And that's the other reason why these master teachers exist for, these up and coming gifted children, past and present, so that they can be taught how to mentally and psychologically and emotionally and even spiritually defend themselves when they're under attack and fend it off as if it's nothing.
Right, and you talk about that. You say one of the things that happened as you went along is you learned about, and we'll get back to this, the invisible college. So we don't need to talk about that right now. But you were ready. You said, I was ready to take the next steps and learn the ancient mechanisms of psychological warfare. What can you say on a show, briefly, that talks about what those mechanisms are?
Everything that we tend to trying to put that in a nutshell. Yeah. Okay. It's a good question, though. It's a good question, though. Yeah. Everything that we take for granted today as being, and I don't say this badly about anyone who has to do this. because people have to do it, but in order just to function, in your daily job. But it's everything that we take for granted as being fixed with an antidepressant or something like that. The quick fix, the things that have plagued us mentally since childhood because we haven't been prepared the right way. We haven't been, and that's no slight against someone's parents, because the parents were once children as well who were raised in that same paradigm of illusion and smoke and mirrors and fear and trauma. Okay,
Yeah.
So there's a reason why domestic violence goes from father to son and mother to daughter. There's a reason why anxiety, everything from anxiety to alcoholism, is passed on by genetics. And so, I just want to be clear. When I say these things, I'm not putting anybody down. I'm just saying this is the kind of warfare that's used against the human being. And it starts with basically, poisoning the well, poisoning the bloodstream. And who's there to do that? Well, there's the medical industry, there's the cancer industry, there's the pharmaceutical multinational. They just love poisoning the human race as a whole, and this generates a psychological need to cling to these things that were created by the system in the first place. Cling to the medication, cling to the quick fix, to the point where even it comes down to why do you salivate when you smell a cheeseburger from McDonald's, which is not a real cheeseburger? Mm-hmm. It's because chemically you have been programmed with a Pavlovian response to salivate for those particular set of chemicals that are injected into that kind of fast food or junk food. It's a chemical addiction.
So anything that keeps us asleep and causes us to be addicted, whether it could be pornography, it could be food, it could be, even just being on Facebook too much. Anything that does that, anything that keeps us asleep is part of the warfare. Would you say
it's that? It's part of the warfare. It did anything that creates a codependence. That kind of thing there, and a constant pounding away. I mean, think about it. This has been going on since the 1970s, actively. I mean, aggressively since the 70s. So here we are, so many decades later, in the year 2017. That's made a huge impact on the human gene pool.
Right.
So,
it's changed humanity and what we eat and what it does to us and how addicted we are to it and all vaccines, etc. I want to just shift on from that to you do say in your book that the sisterhood who is given to protecting gifted children like Jesus was nearly wiped out for being protective of children during what's known as the hybrid war. When did that happen, and who was that between, and what went on there?
A lot of that I begin to allude to later on in the book there, with it wasn't the only instance, but it's kind of like a pinnacle point in Earth's history here when the old phrase, the bureaucratic mentality is the only constant in the universe. Okay, I think Dr. McCoy said that in one of the Star Trek movies, and it's been my favorite phrase ever since. And this is what they were basically running into. The sisterhood, which has always been, as I described before, kind of like a liaison between the general part of the benevolent factions of the galactic community and the human race and so forth, and the development of the human being. They went back to the benevolent factions and said, look, there's a problem developing here. There's another faction hemming in on your action here, and they don't have any good intentions whatsoever because they're coming from, it was like kind of like the rudimentary beginnings of where the Shetu regime came from and the Orion Empire and all that stuff. And they start eyeing up this solar system in a big way. And the sisterhood is like, okay, we got a problem here because we can't protect them here on Earth without the backing of the benevolent factions. And the benevolent factions turned a blind eye to it and said, oh, this is not a problem. We're okay. And the sisterhood got extremely frustrated over the eons of what came of that, okay, which was a lot of tragic backstory here on Earth's history, just to put it in a nutshell to speed up the story there. But ultimately, it culminated by the time circa 2000, around the year 2000, there was a situation that developed where some of these, what was happening with the so-called hybrid war that I mentioned there is that these gifted children were being, some of them, not all of them, but some of them were being kidnapped, hijacked. I mean, talk about taking the whole abduction phenomena to the next level. The sisterhood was becoming a victim of it as well, and they were getting fed up with it because they weren't getting the backing of the benevolent factions to say, okay, let's go intercede on this and stop this. And they were the children were being taken. Some of them were children of these, members of the sisterhood. So they were feeling it in the same way that many human beings on this planet have been feeling it. And it's just they tend to be a little bit more proactive about things, and they kept pushing the issue and not getting any solid response back. Finally, there was a prime opportunity one time, because what was happening here is they suspected that the children were being taken and turned into this other horrid abomination, which is exactly how things started to pan out there. Their worst nightmares were coming true.
Yeah, it's okay to be specific. What is this other horrid abomination? I mean, what were they being turned into?
They were being turned into basically these assassins, sort of like the ability to reach into your body and snap your aorta, crush your heart, make your brain start to bleed. But, they were assassins, okay?
Right. They were energetic assassins, or telekinetic and energetic assassins, which I've heard of from people, in my book I have a friend who was trained as that. He was, and there are things that have happened in his life since where I can look at them and say, yeah, he didn't like that person. Right. And he's gone off because he was mad with that person, so it went awry. Oh yeah. It looks like an accident, but it wasn't an accident.
I think that's why some people, not everyone, but some people who have a problem being around technological devices going haywire, I think in some cases that's where some of that's coming from as well. Not always, but I can see it in the person at times. It's like, okay, yeah, you're not doing it, but you don't realize you're doing it, and the kind of impact they have on people around them. I've seen that happen too. But at a certain point around the year 2000, the sisterhood said, okay, screw this. We're going to intercede on our own. Now, this resulted in one heck of a all-out brawl, so to speak, because the Orion Empire and the Shetu regime got wind of what was being planned as kind of like a political, intercessionary interference. The benevolent factions told them, don't do this. The sisterhood said, we've waited for you long enough. Now our children are being affected. We're not standing by. We're mothers. We're sisters. Now our children are being affected. You can't expect us to say no to this and just stand by. So in doing that, they were making a political statement by standing with the children of Earth, even against what the benevolent factions had said, knowing full well what the risk was. When the reptilian queens and the Shetu Regime and the power mongers figured out what they were doing, there was an all-out witch hunt against the members of the sisterhood. And there were a lot of them that lost their lives. But there was a key group that actually made it to Earth. Okay? I had this conversation with the Crone because she was one of those members of that key group that made it here. And it was a very big confrontation. And I asked her, I said, where exactly did this battle or confrontation take place? And while she was busy waking me up to my own memories of being involved with it, it turned out it was this place over Mexico that's called, mysteriously enough, the Zone of Silence.
Mm-hmm. I know exactly where that is. Yeah. Okay.
So that's where a lot of that went down, and it was this massive floating fortress that was referred to as the I refer to it in the book as the Negamese. That was its name, and that was the Shetu Regime's kind of like flagship, slave ship, experimental, genetic experimentation ship, whatever you want to call it. And the nightmarish visions that the sisterhood came in contact there when they were rescuing the children were just horrendous. And it finally showed, they finally shoved it in the face of the benevolent factions and said, this is your fault. Okay? Mm-hmm. And sort of in the same way, in the same vein of how back in the 40s, 1940s, everybody stuck their head in the sand about the Jewish Holocaust until the New York Times put it on the front page. So it was like one of those kind of scenarios. And then we finally realized why, Jewish refugees were trying to get into America, and we had to be shamed into opening up the gates and letting them through Ellis Island. And this was the same scenario here. The benevolent factions had to be shamed into realizing that their own bureaucratic mentality got in the way.
Right.
And most of this could have been avoided.
Right. So they weren't really paying attention. They were generally being benevolent, but they were being thoughtless and myopic at the same time. You say something in your book that's really interesting. So if you've read Revelation, the four horsemen of the apocalypse are conquest or pestilence, war, famine, and death. But you say the four horsemen of the apocalypse are racism, sexism, nationalism, and xenophobia. Do you want to say a little bit more about that? I thought that was very interesting. Why did you choose those?
Well, it happens to be racism, sexism, nationalism, and xenophobia are the four main pillars of control. And they are not wholly exclusive to Earth. If you go anywhere in the galactic community, any system, solar kingdom or solar system, that is under a state of oppression, you're going to see those four pillars of control: racism, sexism, nationalism, and xenophobia. It's how you control people on a grand scale over time. It's not something that happens in 5 minutes. It's something that serves as a military and economic investment towards reaping the profits of that solar system. Call it what you may, strip mining, hydrofracking, that's also not exclusive to human beings here on Earth. That happens everywhere out there. And so this is something you'll see happening in a lot of other solar systems out there that are in dire need of waking up and attaining their own civil rights and their own freedoms and their own spiritual development, of which they haven't gotten to quite yet, because of the wonderful Orion Empire and the two-party system that's been holding sway over them. And of course, on top of that, so this becomes the four horsemen of the apocalypse. But if we're going to label those the four horsemen, which they are, then we have to revamp the definition of apocalypse, which does not mean this contrived thing like Judgment Day or the end times. Apocalypse just simply means lifting the veil of ignorance and therefore a sense of enlightenment, awakening the pineal gland or the crown chakra, okay? This is not bad. Who it's bad for is the people who are preaching fear and chaos, and those who preach about chaos will die by chaos because they're the ones that created it in the first place. So, that's where that's coming from. On top of that, death, war, famine, and pestilence, hardly anything that could be called an end time, because if it wasn't for death, war, famine, and pestilence, that other half-truth known as evolution never would have gotten off the ground. Okay, that's the backbone of evolution right there. Death, war, famine, and pestilence. We wouldn't be having this conversation right now if it wasn't for that.
Yeah, no, we wouldn't. And the Black Plague did a lot of, for the people who were left after the Black Plague, it was a good thing. It really was. They had the Enlightenment. I mean, that happened, and right after that, and not that I wish it on anyone to live through such a thing, but we have lived through it. Many people who are here probably lived through it or didn't. So you're talking about people preaching chaos. So you also say another thing, quote in the book is, remember, folks, if someone is telling you the sky is falling, the first two questions you need to ask yourself are, who is controlling this information and who is benefiting from it? And do you want to tell us more about that? Is that the preaching of the chaos, or is that part of the Shetu Regime and the reptilians?
It's actually both. It is the preaching of the chaos. Because I've pointed out to people before, like we said in last night's episode, worrying about meteorites and asteroids and the sky is falling. I'm sorry, but in all my years of experience and learning and the path that I've been on, I can honestly say that the one thing that brings both the truly evil bad guys and the truly wonderful good guys together and sitting at the same table is the longevity of the human race. Okay? Some have very, sinister intentions for keeping us alive. Others have wonderful and beautiful and beneficial means of, wanting us to succeed. So those who preach about the chaos, who's benefiting from that? Someone's always making a profit off of preaching about the end of the world and the sky is falling, and someone's always benefiting from it. Okay, because in reality, it's never going to happen anyway. So you really have to wonder, who's getting away with what here behind the scenes. Case in point, when I can really speak well tonight. Hurricane Katrina, when Hurricane Katrina hit that whole area down there in the Gulf of Mexico, okay? It was a disaster, and it was handled poorly. However, on the back end of it, there were a boatload of paramongers in the Billionaire Boys Club who made buco dollars off that disaster, okay? Because they have this thing in the stock market, called, I forget the name of it, stop something or other. But it's kind of like negative investing. Like you're hedging your bets.
Call.
Right.
Yeah.
You're hedging your bets against wanting a disaster to happen. You want the World Trade Center to be blown up because you can make a profit. You want Hurricane Katrina to destroy the Gulf Coast because you can make a profit. Okay? You want commercial airliners to fall out of the sky. So it's become this far where even the concept of worshiping death and dismemberment has become something that equates to profit and greed. Yeah. So naturally, if you're putting profit and greed as the grist behind disaster, well, now you've got the perfect mechanism for preaching about chaos. So,
well, and we see that with the tweets, and I don't want to get too political, but, if you're tweeting, this company is crap, and you're the head of this government, somebody that is making money. And I'm just going to leave that at that, because I can tell. Other people are like, why is he doing that? I'm like, I know why he's doing it, because somebody is going to make a lot of money from that by short calls. All you do is bet on it going down. All you do is, and that is the easiest way. We put somebody who is supremely greedy in such a position of power. Okay, I'm done. I'm off my soapbox. Okay, for you, as you were going along, you learned about, you were in school and you had been doing your artwork, and you learned about the Invisible College. Tell us about the Invisible College and who you perceive some of the master teachers within it to be, and the esoteric teachers.
Yeah, this is where things get really interesting. And for the audience listening out there and the people in the chat room right now, keep in mind that I'm working on book 2 right now. Book 3, I already have it planned out in the back of my head, is going to focus on the Invisible College in a big way. So that's coming in book 3 probably next year, hopefully. So, but the interesting thing how that came about. First of all, the foundations of it, I would have to say, came from the stuff that my mom had started teaching me when I was a kid, very young, okay? How to look at esoteric and religious literature and equate it to Star Wars and Star Trek and see the parallels there, okay? Mm-hmm. So that was the rudimentary beginning, even though I didn't call it that and didn't even know that existed. That's where it started sinking in. By the time I got into college and started going after that first series of artwork I did at the time, and which is on my website in the gallery section, there was a professor there named Steve Duncombe, who I talk about in the book there, who I had a class with him, American media in politics, or the politics of the U.S. media, and it was a very cool class to be in. First time I was ever in a class like that opened my eyes up to a number of things, and he found out what I was into and what I was involved with. So, in a nutshell, he pulls me aside and he says, I have something to show you and talk with you about. And he took a movie way from out of left field that you never would think you could do this with, which was, to be honest, it was Rambo First Blood Part 2. Okay, that was the movie. And he sat there and showed me how to deconstruct the whole entire movie from start to finish. And by the time we reconstructed all the symbolism in the movie that Sylvester Stallone had put in there, mm-hmm. It was like watching Masterpiece Theater. All of a sudden, I had this brand new appreciation of what actors like Sylvester Stallone and Steven Seagal and Mel Gibson were doing with their movies. Mm-hmm. And it dawned on me, I was like, wow, okay. And then Steve Duncombe turns to me, he says, now, he says, with what you're into and what I've just taught you, I want you to take this and start applying it to the science fiction arena. And I had this huge smile come across my face. And because all of a sudden I realized, wow, I'm missing out on something huge here. And so naturally, the first one I went after as a foundation, almost like a cipher, mm-hmm. A key to understanding the rest of the science fiction arena, was actually Star Trek Deep Space Nine, which is actually one of my all-time favorite TV series, and my favorite character, Captain Sisko. Okay, mm-hmm. And the whole symbolism of what does Deep Space Nine mean? What does the wormhole mean? Why is he a black captain, and the first black captain to be such a dominant position in the Star Trek pantheon? And on top of that, in contrast to him, the bad guys were on the other side, the power mongers were on the other side of the wormhole, and mm-hmm. they were all these pale-skinned corporate types called the Dominion, who were conveniently, in terms of symbolism, shapeshifters. So you never knew what they really looked like. And so it just went from there. And looking at all the symbolism as that went down, which would lead us to a very lengthy conversation, because if I tried to get into all the symbolism right now, it would be completely unfair to explaining how to look at the Invisible College the right way. But needless to say, using Star Trek Deep Space Nine as the cipher or the foundation, which I love teaching people about, you can then go to things like the other aspects of Star Trek, or the Star Wars movies, or Doctor Who, or Babylon 5, and just go from there. And it's just endless once you start waking up to what's been hiding right in front of the American audience. Now, maybe a better point to hit on, why does it exist? Okay. It is no different than what I was doing with my artwork, okay, what others might do with their music, okay, it's just another creative venue. But, I mean, let's be honest, you know, if we were to be honest with ourselves and, you know, put our egos aside, we'd have to admit to the fact that a movie director, a film director, is going to accomplish a hell of a lot more than an artist, okay? Right. I mean, who do you identify more with, Andy Warhol or Steven Spielberg? You know, George Lucas or Picasso? I mean, it's no contest there. And so naturally, the film director has the ability to take the concept of downloading and information that's handed off to them, secret conversations that they have that nobody else is supposed to know about, et cetera, and so forth, and put that into a comprehensive symbolic story about the ancient history and the origins of the human race, which is what it's all about. You know, it's basically a liberating factor. Is there a flip side to this, an antithesis, an evil side? Well, there is, but it's not called the Invisible College. It's something else entirely different in terms of propaganda and marketing and things like that. If anybody's interested in knowing the other side of it, they can talk with somebody I know of, an associate who I learned a lot from, named Lennon Honor. Great guy. He, truthfully, I mean, I still like a few Disney movies, but after talking to him, I was afraid to watch a Disney movie ever again. But so that's what he taught me.
You should be female and be kicking yourself because you love Cinderella. You know, no, not a Disney movie now.
Yeah, I mean, sobering education on that one. I wasn't ready for it, but no, on the good side of it, the educational side, the side that is used as a form of what I refer to in the book as guerrilla warfare with the symbolism to counteract the psychological warfare that the human race has been victimized by. Naturally, the film director is going to be used the same way as an artist or a writer to get the information out there to the mass audience.
Well, that was they had remote viewers when I was learning remote viewing in '96. I forget if I read it in a book or somebody told me that they had remote viewed how Gene Roddenberry was getting information for Star Trek, and it was being downloaded through different species at night when he was asleep. They asked the question, and they put it in. You know, they gave it a number, a randomly generated number, and they asked the question, you know, where is Gene Roddenberry getting his inspiration from? And these remote viewers were popping into his bedroom, and there would be aliens standing around giving him notes.
Okay. I could see that being the case, yes. And
it would be different remote viewers who hadn't spoken to each other would get the same scenario. So, you know, there's something to that in his case.
Yes, and there is an anecdotal story that I had learned that runs parallel to that remote viewing session you're talking about there. back in the wild and woolly days of experimentation back in the 60s, okay, which is where, Gene Roddenberry came from in his heyday. Him and his wife, Marjo Barrett, allegedly, I have no way of proving this, but it makes sense. You're the first person I've ever crossed paths with to correlate this in any big way, but he was having a group of, he and Marjo Barrett were having a group of friends over at his house, and they had a channeler there with them. And they were going to do a group session. Now, maybe it was something like remote viewing at the time. It was more like channeling from the way it was told to me. And the channeler had everybody, part of the seance or the session, okay? And they ended up pulling in some information from a group of entities out there, extraterrestrials, ultra-terrestrials, that were communing with Gene Roddenberry, Marjo Barrett, and the channeler, and the rest of the group there. And they started writing down all this information, which was phenomenally controversial and volatile. And this was before he started doing anything with Kirk, Spock, and McCoy. Right. And what came out of that was that they were communicating with an extraterrestrial grouping that referred to themselves as the Council of Nine.
Okay.
Now, of course, you can kind of see where this is going to go at this point. I already gave it away. But when the session was over, for some reason the channeler was told not to release any of this information yet. So it kind of remained, as the story goes, under lock and key with Marjo Barrett all those years. So they looked at it, and they're like, great, we can't use any of this, but Gene Roddenberry was so inspired by what was in that channeled information from the quote-unquote Council of Nine that he ends up inventing Wagon Train to the Stars, Star Trek, Kirk, Spock, and McCoy. Well, many years later, supposedly, Paramount, which has always been a pain in the butt in terms of ownership of the Star Trek franchise, they got wind of this other hidden quote-unquote script, which wasn't a script, it was the channeling sessions, the notes that Marjo Barrett had. And, over the years you kind of hear friction between Marjo Barrett and Paramount, especially after Gene Roddenberry passed away.
Right.
I guess in the heat of an argument, she mentioned, well, I have this. And Paramount, okay. And Paramount is like, well, that's our property, intellectually speaking, because it's all part of the Star Trek franchise. So they had it handed over to them. And sure enough, this channeling session from the Council of Nine became Star Trek Deep Space Nine, which is how they got the number 9 for the space station.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And that's why it was so damning at the time in the 60s, because you got to figure he had an uphill battle just getting a black woman on the deck of the Enterprise to be a communications officer.
Right.
And
but he was clear that he wanted to do it. I mean, even when she wanted to quit, he was like, no, you can't quit. This is, right. You have to stay.
And it was actually a special, Nichelle Nichols had actually crossed paths with Martin Luther King Jr., and she, he walked up to her and said, what you're doing is so good, you keep that role, because she told Martin Luther King Jr., it's not doing anything, I don't want to do it. And Martin Luther King Jr. was like, don't you dare quit that job. You hang on to that tooth and nail. He says, you have no idea how much of an inspiration that is to all of us to see you on the Star Trek deck, okay? So that was...
As an officer.
Yeah, as an officer. But then, so you figure there was no way they would ever be able to do Deep Space Nine back in the 60s. It just wouldn't happen.
No. Now this has been wonderful. We're going to switch over because we go in about a minute. We're going to go into commercial. I want to thank you for coming on. I want to have you come back. I think we should do now. Some of you who are listening, you might have heard of John Ford, but I think next month we're going to try to do a John Ford weekend and talk about what happened with the Suffolk, New York UFO crash. And the gentleman who is trying to research and investigate it and the cover-up of it, John Ford. What do you think, Richard?
That sounds cool. I mean, can we, and thank you very much. That's a wonderful invitation. I appreciate it. Can we possibly get more than just me on? More than,
We'll get Alfred. If Alfred's available, I'll contact people and send me a note about who else you think would be good, because we can spend some time on the weekend. Yeah.
Yes, and because I was glad to see you in the chat room tonight at Inception Radio Network. So thank you for stopping by to listen to the show.
And thanks for inviting me.
That was awesome.
Yeah.
But that would be wonderful. That would be wonderful.
Okay. Well, next up we have James is coming on with Skeeter and the shift. And she's going to be doing her shift thing, so be sure to call in if you have a question for Skeeter about the shift and what does that mean, or how to just calm yourself down with the potential coming changes of our waking up, wake 'em up and shake 'em up, as it were. And I want to thank you all so much for being here with myself. This is Elizabeth Anglin. If you want to talk to me in person, you can email me at info@elizabethanglin.com. Find me on Facebook, or if you need a reading, elizabethanglin.com. Richard Smith is a UFO teacher. You can find his work at ufoteacher.com. Thank you so much for being here, Richard. I look forward to next month when we talk again.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hi there, this is Dave Scott, and I would like to invite you to listen Monday through Friday right here on Spaced Out Radio. 3 hours a night of the top stories with the top guests, ranging topics from UFOs to ETs, ghosts to Sasquatch, and everything in between. We are live every night, 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern. So come on in and take a listen at spacedoutradio.com. Spaced Out Radio will take you out of this world.
Hi there, this is your psychic medium Joanna, and I would love it if you would join us every other Sunday on Spaced Out Weekend. With host James Tyson, we'll bring you personal psychic messages on two mediums and a large. Questions about love, life, career changes. We would love it if you would come and join us live. Call in and listen in for the experience. Allow us to open the doors to your other side. Two mediums and a large. Heard only on Spaced Out Weekend at spacedoutradio.com.
Looking for news beyond the mainstream news? Head to spacedoutradio.com and check out the SOR Spacewire. This is Spaced Out Radio's Eric Markham, news director for the SOR Spacewire. Daily, I will bring you intriguing stories and outlandish reports from what's going on around the world. UFO sightings, paranormal activity, conspiracies, alternative health, and so much more. And if you have news, email me at news@spacedoutradio.com.
Attention Spaced Out Radio listeners. For only $5 a month, you can join Spaced Out Radio Space Travelers. Your membership at spacedoutradio.com will give you access to private fan area on the website, get you a monthly newsletter, draws for monthly swag, and a whole lot more. Sign up today to become a part of the Spaced Out Radio experience.
For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. With their money-back guarantee and the many benefits, how can you afford not to get one? Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com for mind, body, and spirit, and expect a miracle.
Patrolling the Pacific Northwest, we are always on the lookout for the strange and unassuming stories that real people are experiencing. Hi, I'm Vincent Zunza from Pacific North Weird. Me and Alexandra Sullivan have teamed to bring to you those odd stories that never seem to make it into the mainstream. Stories so weird that we'll leave you scratching your head wondering, is this real? It's as real as it gets with Pacific North Weird. You can watch our videos right here at spacedoutradio.com.
It's time to go live on Spaced Out Weekend.
13, please. Oh, hi, Kevin. Oh, is that the time? Kevin, my friend, don't you find that watch just a little bit loud? Well, I certainly hope our buddy Bumblefoot is playing when we get there. Oh, you stinky big bundle of hair. I said Bumblefoot, not Bigfoot. Oh, it's going to be a long night.
It's time to head to the 13th floor of the old log cabin for Spaced Out Weekend with James Tyson. You can tweet James at James Tyson SOR. You can find him on Instagram, Spaced Out Weekend, as well as on Facebook. On YouTube, our channel is Spaced Out Radio Show, and you can check out our website, spacedoutradio.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, the story you are about to see is true. The names have been changed to protect the innocent.
And now, perched high in his captain's chair, way above the clouds, here's James Tyson.
Welcome, everybody. Thank you, Dave Scott. And I want to welcome you, my listener, to Here With Me. I'm broadcasting live to you from my little log cabin on the 13th floor of the Spaced Out Radio Network in the paranormal portals of the lower left Canadian coast, or what we like to call Cascadia, the Pacific Northwest, or just a tad above the 49th parallel on the Pacific. Welcome to those listening on the Spaced Out Radio Network at spacedoutradio.com, the High Plains Talk Radio Network, the wonderful 107.7 FM New Orleans, and their listeners from over 160 countries around this little round dot that spins through space, and hopefully it'll be around a little bit longer. Here at Spaced Out Radio, we broadcast every night of the week, including tonight, because that's one of the every nights, because we want to be your one-stop shop when it comes for the supernatural, spiritual, UFOs, conspiracy, paranormal, and more. And our music you've just listened to is Compliments of Ron Bumblefoot Thal, of Art of Anarchy, Past of Guns N' Roses, and he is the man behind the official sound of Spaced Out Radio. Go to his website, bumblefoot.com, and see what he's up to. And, drop in, say hi. Say hi to him on Twitter. Go to Bumblefoot on Twitter and say, hi, we listen to Spaced Out Radio. We love your music. He'd really like that, and he'd get back to you. Tonight, it's the shift. We're going to calm it down again. We're going to bring it down. I'm going to bring it down, get back into it, get a little feeling. It was a very lovely episode of Cosmic Passport with Elizabeth Anglin and Richard Smith we just had. It kind of relates to what we are talking about here on this shift. The shift itself, that awakening that some in society are doing, as we prepare for some change that's coming. And whether that change is going to be something that you and I actually survive. Well, I guess it would if we were meant to survive. Again, I always believe if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. So we're wondering if it will be meant for a number of us to survive, or a very small minority of us. But we'll see. What the heck? all could happen is we blow up. I don't know. And that's what the shift's all about. We want to know through contact, through Skeeter Welhouse, with her spirit guides, with guides who have been stepping forward lately to pass on information about what could happen. Now, I say what could happen because we, as human beings, as people existing on this planet, have that power to change the course of our future. But unfortunately, not enough of us know we have that power. There are people out there really wanting to make a difference in how we interact with the earth that we live on. And there are those people out there that don't really care about the earth we live on as it's, to them, just very transient. We're only here for 80, 90 years. We move on, and the earth has always been here. So if I don't take it, the person standing behind me will. And there are cultures on this planet that do this. And it's frustrating sometimes to watch cultures like that take and take and take just for the sake of it being there. And their mentality is, well, it's there, it's public, and if I don't have it, somebody else will take it, and that will leave me in a negative situation and them in a positive situation, and I can't have that. Well, it's some of us out there also believe that it's all ours. So you may take it as long as you maybe plant a seed for the next one to grow for somebody else. But what's going on right now? Look at around you. We have these interesting I say conundrums because I look at people that I've known all my life. They're best friends that hang out together, and I'm going to refer to North America right now because I'm in North America and it's really a big chunk of the news here. But you get people voting for one political party and people voting for another political party, and they don't understand how their friends for so many years can vote for the party they're voting for because it's opposite of them, and they don't understand. It's mind-boggling to them. It's such a polar opposite of these two people who, up till then, got along. You know, politics was never really brought out. It was joked about, but it is push and coming to shove. We have Brexit in the UK. We're not going to vote. It's a protest vote, not a big deal. And all of a sudden, oh crap. Yeah, we voted to leave the EU. You've got One Nation in Australia. An idea of it's a party. I'm not saying it's a left or a right. It's the One Nation party it has kind of an interesting idea for Australia. Now, One Nation, if you haven't heard about it, and I'm pretty sure, people in North America are a little bit preoccupied with what is going on here. And we do that. We end up ignoring the rest of the planet until it shows up on our doorstep demanding things. But the One Nation is a political party representing the people of Australia who are concerned that their will is being ignored by the two-party system. One Nation is committed to an Australian sovereignty, a constitution and government of the people, by the people, and for the people. And if you've ever heard that before, yeah, it's interesting. Now, based on this view, they have developed policies reflecting on the will of the people. Their role as a political party is to select and recommend to the people's candidates that we feel, or they feel, reflect their objectives and policies and are worthy of representing them, the people, and their will as dedicated parliamentary representatives. It's just a new political party, but it's pulling people together. It is taking a space or a part between the existing parties right now. Interesting. Why why is this party stepped forward? What is going on, or what has gone down down under that have got the people agitated with the system they have? What was going on in the United States recently, which got people agitated with the Republican and Democratic, it's just that common every 4 years, this is one party, this is the other party. Well, somebody comes in shaking it up and stirring up the status quo. It's that little red laser light against the wall, and we're all fascinated with it. Look at that twitching. Oh, it's really cool. Look what's going on. Oh, we did get them voted in. But why? Why are these things happening on our planet? Why are politicians, and I'll go out on a limb saying that One Nation party in Australia probably get elected in just because of what's going on in the rest of the world. Things are being turned on their head. Why? Why are people being put in certain positions of power in large countries at this time in our history? We talked a little bit about President Trump. And it was a little bit unfortunate the way we referred to him last time, but you've got to understand that it's President Donald J. Trump is president because that is where he is supposed to be at this time in history. There was no way he was going to lose that election because that's where he is supposed to be. And I bet you, and we're going to bring Skeeter on here shortly, but I bet you that those people who are so polar opposites in voting, that's very important. That is a very important reason that those people are so push come to shove. There's something afoot, and these people are placed into positions of power because it's a stir-up society. So that's what we're going to be talking about tonight. And we're also going to be introduced, and we're going to introduce to you Charlie. Now, Charlie is a female spirit guide, and Charlie's the one we've been getting the information from through Skeeter Welhouse. And Skeeter, if you've followed Spaced Out Weekend, you'll know Skeeter as being one of the psychics on Two Mediums and a Large. And this is her show. This is Skeeter's The Shift. And I'm just here riding her coattails because I'm very interested in what she has to say. So I'm going to bring her in and along with Charlie. Skeeter, how are you tonight?
Good. How are you?
I am fine. It's interesting that Charlie wants to say hi tonight. Well, I shouldn't say Charlie wants to say hi, but we had discussed that Charlie was coming out for an introduction, and
yes,
you're going to give the listener a little bit, well, of an idea of how this works and who Charlie may be and why it's important. I shouldn't say it has to be important, but we'd like you to listen and actually believe what's coming through.
Charlie is one of my guides. She's been coming in for probably the last 2 to 3 years. She's the one that when Trump announced he was going to run, she told me right away, don't even worry about fussing about it. He's going to win. And I was like, no way. And she's like, yeah, I voted for him. So just so you know, even my guide voted for Trump. She said that he has to be in there. And love him or not, Trump is actually doing exactly what he's supposed to be doing. President Trump is actually getting the people's attention. He is drawing attention to our political system, which is greatly in need of attention.
Now, sorry, I've got to interrupt you because I can sense my listener coming out of their chair throwing stuff right now. Is how the heck did your spirit guide vote?
Okay, thank you, James. Charlie is actually a time traveler, from what I've been explained. Charlie was actually born, I've got the notes right here. She was born in 1973. She was actually born in Venice, Italy. And she made it to a certain point in time, and she lived in a world that didn't have a Donald Trump. She came back in time to make sure that this occurred, and she's been showing me her travels and these parallel realities through what she's done and what she's traveled. And if you're wondering how she traveled through time, you can actually blame alchemy. Oh. She actually found a process using alchemy and something very similar looking to Stargate to travel back and forth between our world and our timeline, as well as other worlds and their timelines.
So she was in Italy in the future?
In the past, 1973.
Oh, okay. So you said she traveled back in time, but she traveled forward in time.
Actually, she lived and came back in time to vote. It's complicated.
Oh, I see. She was born in 1973. She lived and got to a certain point where she goes, you know what, I'm going to go back and become an illegal alien in the U.S. and vote for Trump.
Yep.
Okay. Well, she wouldn't be illegal because then that would affect her voting qualifications, wouldn't it?
It would.
Yeah.
And she was a legal voter in the state of New York.
Oh, interesting. I wonder if she knew Joey, because Joey lives there and he's Italian. And, it's a small place, isn't it, New York? It's interesting that you have a spirit guide like this. So obviously, I'm going to say obviously, but who the heck knows? She's passed, she's crossed over, and she's become your guide.
Yeah.
It's one of those things, if I was time traveling, I'd always want to go back to where I was younger. I guess you stay the same age when you time travel, don't you?
I don't know all the details. I've been asking her, and she gives me a little bit about how some things slow down. It doesn't really stop. It just slows down.
Oh, okay. Yeah, the only person I've ever really heard time traveling was Superman when he flew, backwards around the Earth. But the theory, that's a Einstein theory, that if you were to do that fast enough, you'd actually go back in time.
Yep.
But that's interesting. So Charlie, will she tell us what her name was when she was on Earth?
Gabriella Charlize Xavier Bassi.
Gabriella Bassi. And where was she when she passed away?
Not on this planet.
Oh, for crying out loud. Here I'm trying to track down her cemetery and stuff like that, and now she's giving me, not on this planet. Which planet, and how did she get there?
Mars.
I'm sorry. It was Mars?
Mars.
Mm-hmm.
And it's our return back to Mars.
Okay. So that's not helping me at all, track her down.
No. This is part of a bigger story. Her story is part of a much bigger story.
Well, we're going to have to drop in after we survive this shift and determine exactly what's up with her. So, hello, Gabriella, or Charlie, and we welcome you to this shift. And carry on. Skeeter, tell us exactly what it is that Charlie has been telling you about where we are going and why she's actually come back, and obviously she voted for Trump because that was for some reason it was very important for her to come and do that. So why was that?
The problem is that the political system has become very stagnant. I know the word benign probably doesn't best describe it, but it's the best word I have. But it's always the same thing over and over and over and over again. One of the unfortunate things about Hillary Clinton, and I even posted this on my website after the day after the election, was that had Hillary been elected, it would have been politics as usual. Trump is needed because he is letting us see in an extreme way the fragileness of what we've set up. The polarities within our own society that have been created. He's actually, in his own way, showing us who we want to be with. He's making us polarized to our own kind. And even though there are those of us who didn't vote for him, who are trying to figure out why those did vote for them, and there are those of them who voted for him who are trying to figure out why didn't you vote for him, the truth is there's a lot of topics that are being brought up that have nothing to do with the election itself. It has to do with taking care of each other as humans. And we are, as humans, are standing up together. The Women's March is a fantastic example. This because it wasn't just a U.S. response. It was a worldwide response. The Women's March occurred on almost every single continent in more countries than I'm even aware of. It was an amazing event because here it is, people who didn't even vote, who have no consequences of what happens to U.S. women, stood up and said, no, this is about all women. This isn't about U.S. women. This isn't about African women. This isn't about European women. This isn't about any kind of woman. It's about women in general. And even in the LGBT community, there are groups gathering going, no, this isn't about this specific group or this specific group. It's about us. Standing Rock, it's amazing because you've got Native American Aboriginal tribes, various Native tribes coming together all over the world. This is a global thing. This isn't just us as in the U.S. This is us as a human species coming together to say, no, this isn't right. This is what's right. This is what's important. This is what you need to be paying attention to. And it's amazing to see this. I mean, we don't see this kind of connection globally except for when something really bad happens and it's short-lived. This is going forward. This is collecting momentum. If politics had stayed as usual, we wouldn't be seeing this extreme wake-up.
And it's not just in the U.S. You know, you look at the split in the European Parliament. The former president of the European Parliament is now running against Angela Merkel for the German chancellery. It's about populism. It's about the stability of democracy, and that's what they're really pushing. There's infighting. There is public outrage going back to the terrorist attacks in Berlin. The fellow in the truck. They're asking that the entire security system be overhauled as a result of that. There's things, little, I shouldn't say little, I guess in the great global thing, global sense, 13 to 25 deaths may be a little thing, but these are pushing, and it's really concerning. Whether it's what does Donald Trump mean for Europe, and what does the future hold for the NATO alliances, and how is Putin in Russia looking at what could happen to the NATO alliances, and any renegotiating that has to be done with NATO by the U.S. White House. What does it mean for the Balkan countries, the countries in Africa, which we sent in? I know the Royal Canadian Mounted Police that I belong to, we were sending people over to the Congo again, and we send NATO troops in Africa. I think there's always some NATO troop in Africa somewhere. But what's going to happen to NATO as a organization? Not that it does anything. It it did a lot more than whatever. I can't remember the name of that organization that existed in World War I, who just sat back and watched World War II happening and didn't have any teeth. Maybe NATO is gone to that point now too, where it's been over bureaucratized into having its teeth taken away from it. So something is shifting. This world political change is affecting, Joe and Jane's six-pack in their backyards, where it never did before. This conversation is right down to the dinner table, where for the last 50 years, maybe it hasn't been.
Yeah.
So where are we going? And why is it now? Why is it 2017 that the entire planet politically is kind of shucking and jiving into a new direction?
One, we've gotten complacent. We haven't had, this may sound very barbaric, but there was a time when we were great civilizations. It wasn't these weapons that fought for us, it was us fighting face to face. It was us surviving on the land, surviving from each other. Survival wasn't as easy as just going online and typing in a couple words and arguing distantly through a chat room. Everything was face to face. Messengers were even face to face. We've become so detached from ourselves, from each other, from the world. We put policies in place that, the policy is going to impact almost immediately anymore without any real thought about long-term consequences. They just happen because something's happening now that we don't like. We, as a world, have become detached from each other. We've forgotten nature, we've forgotten each other, and in this time, there has been a social experiment going on. How detached can we go before the people wake up? How far can we push this envelope? Will it hit the floor? What will it take to make people wake up? And President Trump is a part of this. He is that final straw that it took to get people to go, what's going on? On both sides. A lot of people were really excited because he is not political. He's a businessman. Mm-hmm. A lot of people were really attracted to that. And he is. He's running things like a business. He's doing what he does. I absolutely loved Donald Trump, especially when he had started up several of his shows. because he knew how to get people's attention and how to get people drawn in. This is what's happening. People are being drawn in, and it's drawing in the world. We're getting to see that he's done things with Russia, and how does that play? What exactly did happen? So now we're aware of Russia and what Russia's doing. Well, what about this Brexit? And all of a sudden the people in Britain are going, do we really want to do this?
Yeah,
it's this amazing catalyst. I mean, how could you better pick a better cosmic boom in a sort of way to get all these people to start going, Germany is watching us, going, we've seen this show before, be careful.
It's Germany in November 18th, Der Spiegel, one of the big papers there, wrote that as a result of Trump's victory, they were... Actually, the New York Times was involved in this too, that the German chancellor was now the de facto ruler of the free world, where it used to be always U.S. president. Angela Merkel, who is a chancellor, said such a notion was grotesque and absurd. But is it? After all, it has changed the world. But up to November 8th, it seemed unimaginable that the West could in fact be in danger of destroying itself, and that's their words. That that the very citizens who enjoy the freedoms guaranteed by Western liberalism could endanger the West by their own loss of faith in democracy, not in a human being, but they've lost faith in the democracy that they've lived in. So, and that is spreading, and you see that again. Like we said with in Australia with One Nation, they're losing faith in the democracy, the two-party system they had. So the third party has come together, and they're running for the One Nation, and because they're just tired of the status quo. This is all happening at the same time. We'll call. I'm going to say it is the President Trump is a bit of the catalyst, which has really shaken things up, because it's, the U.S. is the young country, that loud teenager who keeps cranking the music up in his bedroom, and you're going, just want to be quiet. But it's the door is open, and you can see the disco lights and flashing in that, and you're going, oh my God, it's in my eyes. So everybody's paying attention to it. What is going to happen, Skeeter? You talk to Charlie. Charlie, comes back from the future to vote for Trump because she had lived in a world where I'm guessing from what you said, Trump wasn't elected.
Yeah.
So they've come back to get him in. I think there's been a change in to get more than half or at least half the people voting for him. There'd have to be a change in mental process for an awful lot of people to do that, and that's where I say that these people at work are looking at each other across the table, looking at him, going, "You voted for who?" And one guy's saying, "Well, I'm voting for Clinton," and the other one's saying, "You're voting for Trump." And they're not like, okay, well, I guess I'll have to go cancel out your vote. Ha ha. It's like, what are you, nuts?
Yeah.
She's a criminal. He's a nutcase. Blah, 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 blah. And you think, whoa. It's okay, guys. It's just politics. Vote for who you want to. It's not a big deal. Well, no, it's a big deal to the point that I'll throw a punch. Yeah. So why? And I'd like to almost, at this point, I don't mind bringing Charlie in and having her.
The way the world was going before Trump came in is that people were becoming insanely complacent. We kind of nodded. We were becoming numb. She says it got to a point where you had hundreds of children and families wiped out in seconds. And everyone kind of got online and posted about how sad they were, but nothing happened. that we got so numb to what the government was doing that when everything hit, it was too late. Humanity was done. She says it was almost as if they walked in and they handed us the Kool-Aid, and we knew the Kool-Aid was poisoned, and we drank it anyways because we just didn't care anymore. We didn't want to fight anymore. She says it was a failure. We failed. We didn't defend anything. We didn't protect anything. So when everything came, when these outside forces came to harvest, we just sat there numbly.
And that's us as a society on the planet?
Yeah.
That's everybody.
That's everybody.
Yeah.
But she says by bringing Trump in, it woke everybody up. It made people go, oh my gosh. I mean, love him or leave him. Everyone is going, here he is. Here's Trump. Here is President Trump. Here is a man who has, don't get me wrong, he is an amazing individual on some aspects and incredibly terrifying on the others. But look at how he's getting everybody's attention.
Yeah. He just has to sign something and it gets everyone's attention.
Yeah.
I think it's
tweets.
I know.
Everybody's paying attention.
It is the difference. And I'm wondering if that difference and his reaction to things, which causes negative reaction in some aspects of the population, and I can say this internationally,
yeah,
is it for a what's
it's
the
for a bigger cause?
Yes. What is the long game here?
The thing is that right now, as we're talking, there is a bigger story going on. As I told you, Charlie is part of a bigger story. Right now, there are a lot of interstellar ET activity going on around us. There are things being lined up, and there are things that are being revealed.
Now, I'm going to slow you down there and tell me what things are being lined up.
Our solar system isn't what it was several million years ago, even before hundreds of millions of years ago, billions of years ago. We used to have 3 suns, a central sun and 2 sister suns that rotated around us, pretty much so where the asteroid belt is. Our solar system got shuffled up in a power play. And everything got rearranged. By us becoming complacent, there are those seeking to retake what they think is theirs. By us waking up, we can say, no, we inhabit this planet now. It's ours. This is ours. Go away. We're willing to fight for it. There are species. I honestly, I did not believe until my trip to California. I did not believe they were here with us. I know I've seen things that are UFOs, but I grew up next to an Air Force base. And, you kind of complacently buy in. Okay, yeah, it was an experimental aircraft, whatever. A weather balloon. Okay, I'll buy it. But these creatures have a play in our political system. They have a play in how we interact with each other. That's why they like creating these weird stories that we all go after and bicker over. But Trump coming in, that's forcing a lot out into the open, and we're looking, okay, is this underground group, is this what is really happening? How did this happen? We're all looking at each other. How did this happen? One of the things that someone lovingly pointed out to me was that even Trump looked a little surprised. Hey, I'm president.
Yeah. To kind of you kind of skipped over the your UFO encounter. Could you kind of go back into some of the things you ended up running into that UFO, and then you had some communication from something that was a in regards to what you're talking about and what you have kind of put out there in regards to what we're talking about on the shift.
Oh gosh, what do you want me to talk about it? I'm still processing it all.
Okay, Skeeter told me she did have a encounter with a UFO over her vehicle. She also had a visitor basically telling her that she's been giving too much information out in regards to what's coming up. And let's get the idea, like we did in the first show. There was some reasoning behind why we were coming up and why you were getting in the information. Tonight we're trying to just cover off the idea of what's happening globally and how it's connected to what may be happening and what is coming up in the next, we'll say, 3 years, possible 3 years. But we still have some control over how it goes.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah. So you, when we talk about the shift and why it's important to kind of pay attention to, what is it? And we're not going to go dwell on the overly negative, but we're just going to do what the information is you got from Charlie. In the next little while, as a result of we'll call it a global shakeup, how is that going to affect Joe Sixpack and be grilling out in the backyard?
We're going to be watching as our global financial systems are going to be challenged. Our political systems are going to be challenged.
Yeah.
People are going to be more aware of who they are voting for.
Well,
and also the thing is that there's this network that's been built while the rest of us have been enjoying our burgers and the Super Bowl and all this.
Yeah.
That we are now so globally interconnected that those who think they're hiding things overseas, those things are going to be ripped open. Those things are going to disappear, and it's going to force us to go back to thinking on a us level. One of the things that I talked about the very first time was it's no longer a me society. Me has to go away. It has to become an us. It has to become a me and you and us.
Yeah.
If you have something, it becomes ours. If I have something, it becomes ours, because we're going to be hitting a massive financial, social, political, environmental explosion that we're going to have to pull in. We're going to have to go back to our grassroots. We're going to have to go back to the way we were before we went to sleep.
How is it described to you when you get this information? How is it described?
Charlie sometimes shows me what I see as movies. Old time glossy movies. One of the things that she showed me in the 70s was that the political parties were in action and in movement. And somehow, some way in the 80s, we made it go away. We let people get out their fluff, their energy, and we let them go to sleep in the 80s by giving them feel-good stuff and happy thoughts and the yuppie and all those wonderful things. great movies, great, wonderful 80s movies, and things that just distracted you.
Shoulder pads and headbands.
Yeah.
That's a whole other issue. Leg warmers. I understand it to a point. I kind of grew up in an area where things changed. I was a volunteer for a little group out of Vancouver, British Columbia called Greenpeace, and we went around trying to save the wolves. I think it was Alaskan wolves or something. And then, yeah, it was wolves. And we were running around getting money for these people who were volunteering their time. And we got a lot of money, to the point that the people who were the older, the late 20s, early 30s people saw this money coming in and they thought, oh, we could actually get a full-time job doing this. And they started pulling a wage off the money that we were bringing in. And I remember Greg, a friend of mine, and I, we were like little tweens, very young teenagers, and we ended up burning our Greenpeace membership cards out in front of the office. And we were going to go on the Sea Shepherd and go save the world. But we just saw people who were very airy-fairy and love peace kind of thing all of a sudden becoming corporate.
Yeah.
As we watched them, because of money. And it was a real change. And in going into the 80s, you saw a lot of those people that were all for sharing and respecting everyone else and respecting the environment. They became corporate hacks.
Yeah,
and that was
the hippie to yuppie.
Yeah, it was a little weird looking back on that. So you've got Charlie giving you these movies. Now, we talked once before about the banking system, and I can't remember if it was you or somebody else talking about the banking. Was it, maybe it was Richard Smith talking about it was run by 9 people? Was that Charlie? That
wasn't me. That was the other.
Yeah, okay. And 2 of them are going to die, and that's going to throw everything into a... Oh, that's right. That was June last night. Because she was talking about what her prediction was and what she saw happening. It was exactly the same as what Charlie had passed on to you.
Yeah.
An economic collapse.
And the funny thing is that there's actually, the show, Elizabeth's show just before this, that's a lot of what I'm seeing. That's a lot of what I'm being shown.
The shadow government kind of losing control.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So what are we going to do about this? What are we going to do about this banking system thing? Or are we going to be able to do something about that?
I don't think we're going to be able to do something about it. I think, out of all honesty, it's like having Trump win. It's something that has to happen. Right now, we've got individuals, like it was mentioned on Elizabeth's show, we've got individuals who are making bets that bad things are going to happen.
And that's just bad vibration to throw out there anyway.
Yeah. Why would I want to make my fortune off of someone's misfortune?
Yeah, welcome to the arms manufacturing.
Well,
yeah.
That wasn't their original purpose. You got to realize when arms were originally made, they were meant to protect people, not, scare the hell out of us.
Yeah. Oh, well. We grow as a human society.
But the thing is that humans used to be really ambitious. We used to be very adaptable to our circumstances. And now we're manipulators, and we're being manipulated. The great manipulator was forged in fire. We've earned our position through fire, through aggression. We lost touch with that innovative part of ourselves, that adaptable part of ourselves. If we can't get into the wilderness, we'll pave a path. We'll get in some tractors. As things are starting to crumble, we're going to have to start becoming adaptable again.
Yeah. To adapt is going to take some change. I can't imagine
A lot
my
of change.
teenagers trying to adapt to a life without an iPhone. But I don't know. It is interesting. If we can kind of cut to the chase here, and let's stick with the prophecy or the future information that Charlie's bringing you. One of my big question for young Charlie is, why are we getting this information right now?
Because now is that time. This is when everything is pivoting. This is when everything is changing. The Earth is getting ready to flip its core. Man hasn't completely lost his humanity yet. We've got someone amazing like President Trump, who's here to be an amazing catalyst. There's a lot going on here, and right now is kind of like that really weird split in time, where you can see, and even without prophecy, we can see we've got two clear roads ahead of us. One where we don't stand beside each other, and one where we do. It's very rare in time that we as humans are actually presented with something that we can all see, with or without prophecy, that we are at a point of extreme change.
Yeah.
That's why this time, this moment, this is it. This is why she came back. This is why many came back. I'm not the only one being given this information.
I was told this a year and a half ago by a friend of mine who's a very, very good psychic where I live, who did my past life regression. I asked her, what do you see in the future? And she looked at me and said, if I told you what I've seen, it would terrify you. And she said, it's just better to move away from the coast. I was like, what? But she was really careful. She said, it's not time. I'm not going to tell anybody. And that was it. And that was a year and a half ago when I had my past life thing. Yeah, very interesting. Leanne Bates, very, very gifted lady out here. It's in my understanding of the shift, and this is, again, this shift thing is, people started this back 10, 15 years ago, worrying about, a volcano blowing up, or the end of the world, or the Mayan calendar, and all this other crap that was floating around out there. But this is different. This is a whole bunch of individuals that you have to actually prod to say, well, you're psychic. Have you ever heard what was going to happen in the future? And they kind of stare at you and giggle and go, no, not really. And they shake their head and run away. But they were given the information, but now it's coming out. Talking to a number of people who have contact with, well, we'll call them the spirit guides. My concern is, as you have a human spirit guide, but the ETs who have been replacing a lot of spirit guides in the last little while. Are they fooling us, or are they coming in with light and love, but they're actually got some other little devious plan? But who knows? I don't know.
I would say that's as each of us deal with our guides, we have to trust that the guide that's guiding us is guiding us for our better interest.
Our personal better interest, but on a, what if it's a global disaster? Who knows? Like, is it little bits of information to people? Joanna's guide, Rob, is telling us about Bigfoot, and its name is Echo, and Hitler died in Argentina and was buried in this little town. This information is very, very interesting. In fact, if I was talking to Jim Mars, who is a reporter, did the JFK book, which the movie JFK was based on, and his research into the JFK assassination doesn't jive with information that Joanna's guide put forward. But I always lean to Joanna's Guide, because Joanna's Guide talks about certain things that happen to people, and my experience with Joanna and callers calling in, it's fantastic. The information that is so accurate that she is providing.
Joanna's amazing.
And now, you get these so-called experts that come out of the woodwork, not out of the woodwork, but very famous authors who say, well, that's not what I believe, or that's not what I've run into. So I'm thinking, okay, are you wrong? Or is the invisible person that's talking through my friend wrong? And there's me as the policeman going, there's a flesh and blood guy who's done all this research and look at all the paper and books he's read, but I have this lady that I've only known for 2 years who's talking to somebody I don't know or can't see. Who do I believe? And it's kind of I'm still in that, I'm not quite buying the invisible friend, but this guy's read this in a book.
Remember last time how I was talking about, as a prophet coming out and saying what I'm seeing, the information I'm getting. I am setting myself up for criticism. I am setting myself up for people to want to call me out as a fraud, a fake, a falsehood, because they want to see what I'm doing go wrong.
Yeah.
There's that danger. And that's why that's another reason why a lot of us are being very quiet. I'm still resistant to talking about the shift because I know how delicate this situation is. I know there's a lot of people who don't want to hear about it, who are going to argue about it, who are going to disagree with it. And my hope is that, by bringing it up, I inspire that human desire to prove me wrong and make a falsehood out of me by going the opposite way, by taking advantage of free will and making this different. That's why Charlie's coming out. She's saying, okay, if I give you the information, if I tell you, you guys are screwed, can you please come together and prove me wrong?
Yeah. Yeah.
Do this. Get mad at me. Don't get mad at them. Get mad at me. Show me. Get riled up. Yeah. Show me that you people can come together over this topic. Joanne's got some amazing things. I've heard a couple on the recordings and other people who have been on the show during the week, with you on the weekends. Today I was at a show and I met some amazing people who have also seen stuff. And we're nervous about coming out. But let's bring people out. Let's bring people in.
Yeah.
Let's
interesting.
Wake everyone up.
It's the waking everybody up. And I'm looking at one of the chat rooms now, and they're not wanting to listen. It's, you're trying to get the information out there that this is going to happen. Maybe you should move on and try to listen to this stuff. And it's a little different. It's something that a lot of people don't want to hear. They want to hear about there's an alien in my backyard juggling, or I think I'll move on to there's a Bigfoot running across the road or something like that. And that's what they were tuning in for. But you look at the statistics and the amount of people that are listening right now. Oh my gosh, it's crazy out there. We're pushing close to 140,000 people, not including the people in the chat room who don't want to listen right now. It's some of the things that we have to talk about are upsetting, and I'm really trying to pass this information on gently, but we'll see what happens. And I'm going to be back after our 7-minute stretch.
Hi there, this is Dave Scott, and I would like to invite you to listen Monday through Friday right here on Spaced Out Radio. 3 hours a night of the top stories with the top guests, ranging topics from UFOs to ETs, ghosts to Sasquatch, and everything in between. We are live every night, 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern. So come on in and take a listen at spacedoutradio.com. Spaced Out Radio will take you out of this world.
Hi there, this is your psychic medium Joanna, and I would love it if you would join us every other Sunday on Spaced Out Weekend. With host James Tyson, we'll bring you personal psychic messages on two mediums and a large. Questions about love, life, career changes. We would love it if you would come and join us live. Call in and listen in for the experience. Allow us to open the doors to your other side. Two mediums and a large, heard only on Spaced Out Weekend at spacedoutradio.com.
Looking for news beyond the mainstream news? Head to spacedoutradio.com and check out the SOR Spacewire. This is Spaced Out Radio's Eric Markham, News Director for the SOR Spacewire. Daily, I will bring you intriguing stories and outlandish reports from what's going on around the world. UFO sightings, paranormal activity, conspiracies, alternative health, and so much more. And if you have news, email me at news@spacedoutradio.com.
Attention Spaced Out Radio listeners. For only $5 a month, you can join Spaced Out Radio Space Travelers. Your membership at spacedoutradio.com will give you access to private fan area on the website, get you a monthly newsletter, draws for monthly swag, and a whole lot more. Sign up today to become a part of the Spaced Out Radio experience.
Strange creatures lurking in the night, the sounds of wood knocking in the forest, odd happenings right out of a fictional world. These are the reports I love. Hi there, this is author Ronald Murphy, and I would love it if you join me and Spaced Out Radio host Dave Scott the second Wednesday of every month on our journey into the unknown land of cryptozoology at spacedoutradio.com. From Mothman to Frogman and everything in between. Hey, they don't call me the crypto guru for nothing.
Greetings and salutations, space travelers, from the Chronicles of the Unknown team.
What is Chronicles of the Unknown? I keep hearing about this thing.
It's a new paranormal reality TV show based right here in beautiful British Columbia, Canada. Follow our team as we uncover claims of activity on the Caribou Gold Rush Trail. You can also follow us here every third Monday, where two members of our team will be available to answer your questions. We'll give you some equipment updates and some of our experiences on the road, right here on Spaced Out Radio.
For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. With their money-back guarantee and the many benefits, how can you afford not to get one? Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com for mind, body, and spirit, and expect a miracle.
Patrolling the Pacific Northwest, we are always on the lookout for the strange and unassuming stories that real people are experiencing. Hi, I'm Vincent Zunza from Pacific North Weird. Me and Alexandra Sullivan have teamed to bring to you those odd stories that never seem to make it into the mainstream. Stories so weird that will leave you scratching your head wondering, is this real? It's as real as it gets with Pacific North Weird. You can watch our videos right here at spacedoutradio.com.
Find yourself constantly looking up in the sky, looking for answers? Have you had extraterrestrial contact? Are you an abductee? Looking for answers to your experiences? Hi there, I'm R. Keith Andrews, Spaced Out Radio's resident ET expert. Join me live the first Friday of every month, where I take questions from the Spaced Out Radio chat room and help you understand those from the far-off world. It's 2 hours of knowledge every experiencer should listen to. Hope to see you there.
Hey everybody, this is Patrick Webster Small, and I'm here to bring you the Webster Phenomena every Saturday night, live at 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern. If you're looking for aliens and extraterrestrials, well, we've got them. Big and tall, short and small, you're bound to find what you're looking for. So join me on the Webster Phenomena right here on Spaced Out Radio.
Hi there, this is Jolene with Reveal Reiki and Readings, and I want you to relax. Let me help you chill out and get in touch with your body, mind, and soul. In this busy world, sometimes we need to let go, and this is where I can help. Visit my website, rivuletrr.wix.com/Rivulet-R&R, or my Facebook page, Rivulet R&R, to set up an appointment for relaxation, Reiki, or readings, no matter where you are. It's time for you to make time for you.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
Every month on Spaced Out Radio, we look into the deep and dark reports of cryptids roaming around the world with me, Rob Morphy from Cryptopia.us. I would love it if you would join me and host Dave Scott as we delve into the most arcane stories and reports regarding creatures of the unknown. My job is to hunt down the details and bring the evidence forward to you. These aren't your regular Bigfoot stories I'm talking about either. You can find out more about crypto history at spacedoutradio.com.
Tonight's edition of Spaced Out Weekend is brought to you by spacedoutradio.com, where you can now sign up to become a Space Traveler member. Now, for the final time tonight, here's Spaced Out Weekend's James Tyson.
Thank you, Dave. Welcome back, everybody, to Spaced Out Weekend. And say, have you signed up for the SOR Space Travelers Club yet? Don't tell Dave, but I'm telling just to throw a donation in there via PayPal. With that, your name gets entered into a monthly draw for prizes, access to private group interviews, access to a special section on our website, and much more. And you can find that at spacedoutradio.com, or you can also see Eric Markham's SOR Space Wire for your latest in weird news. We also have that lovely feature, if you've experienced anything, get a hold of us via the SOR Sightlines report, and our researcher Mike Smith will get back to you and look into your experience. All information is 100% confidential. Hey, so we were, before the break, and I'm going to bounce over to one of the chat rooms here on our Facebook chat room. One of our primary chat rooms here right now is on Facebook, the SOR Space Travelers. Now, if you are a listener or want to be involved in a chat room, go to Facebook if you can. If you're not driving a truck in the UK right now, which is one of our listeners does, he uploads a show and plays it while he's out on his route in the mornings. You can go to Facebook, go to SOR Space Travelers, and just ask to join the group. We'll click it, and we'll get you in. And if you want, you can come in and chat with the other people in the chat room, which is what a chat room is used for chatting. And the other one is on Spreaker. So you'd have to go to the Spaced Out Radio show via Spreaker. Sign up to Spreaker. It's free, and you can get in there and swim through that chat room, which is quite exciting tonight. And what the coolest part about that is I can turn it off anytime I want. It's no, it's one of those things that we are talking about something that is very controversial. And it's been kind of brewing here on the Spaced Out Radio Network for a while of how we delve into this subject. Now, this whole Spaced Out Radio Network was actually put together by Dave Scott because he was guided to do so, because there was information out there that people had to know. And this is part of the had to know information. Some people will get it, some people won't. If you don't understand and you disagree, not a big deal. We're pushing more than 140,000 listeners tonight, and not including what's going to be downloaded. So let's say there's some other people out there who are tuning in to listen to this too. And I know we've got a lot of people in the chat rooms. I think we've maybe got 15 or 20 that, they have some concerns. And I tell you, you kind of outnumbered, unfortunately. So we're going to stick with this is a democracy. We're going to stick with the 140,000 other people. And that's only on one of our networks. That doesn't include what's being downloaded into iTunes and TuneIn and via our High Plains Talk Radio network, and those other ones that we're getting into. Before the break, we were talking to Skeeter Welhouse. Now, Skeeter is a psychic medium. She's very gifted. She's a ET experiencer. She sees things that, I wouldn't want to see. Really good to have along on a paranormal investigation like we had down in Concrete, Washington, because she could actually see the spirits we were talking to. And when our recording equipment went for a poop, at least Skeeter was there to tell us what they were saying. It's like channeling the ghost that's standing at the end of the bar, which was kind of fun.
Yeah,
now,
it was.
You've got Charlie. Charlie is a terrestrial being, a human being that has bounced around this planet for a while. And Darren, one of our listeners, would like you to talk a little bit more before we get into the second half about a little more of a detail on the economy shift related issue. Darren kind of pointed out we really need to dig in a little bit more of Charlie's background and her time traveling. And
okay, I grabbed my Charlie notebook so I can give him some more specifics.
17 binders of Charlie notebooks. Now, Charlie
Only 3.
is okay, but give us a timeline on Charlie. She was born in 1973 in Italy, and now take it from there.
Charlie, one of the things that Charlie wants to point out is that she's not human.
Oh,
she was born on Earth, but she is not human.
Sorry, Charlie. Sorry, Charlie.
And I'm looking for her birthday. Her birthday is December 24th, 1973. And
we should give that information to Paisley and to her numbers.
Actually, I kind of did the numbers.
Okay.
December is a 12, that's 3, that's the Trinity. And she is actually the combined force of 3 other guardians. Now, if anybody knows what the guardians are, they're actually aliens who kind of oversee all the other aliens. Her birthday, 24, is 6. That is law. She's here to help regulate and make sure that what happens, happens. 1973 comes down to a 2, which is grow and expand. She's trying to grow and expand the human race. So, how's that?
That kind of fits, yeah.
When she comes back to our age, when she leaves Earth, it's 2061. Which is a 9. That's beginning and endings. It's actually an ending with a beginning. So she's actually ending that storyline, that timeline, by coming back in time to vote in several elections, including the Trump one. She actually came back before Trump was elected. She voted, in fact, she helped vote in George Bush, the first George Bush. She came back in 89.
George the First.
Yep. She was 98 at the time, which comes down to 8, which is magic. It's the age of magic. It's a performance of magic. And the year she comes back to us is April 7th, 1989 is when she reappears on our timeline under the name of Charlize Xavier Holt, who was born, according to the paperwork that she was given to perform in this world. She was born in 1980, April 13th at 3:30 a.m. Although that wasn't true, that's just what the paperwork said.
Okay,
And
let me stop you there. When you say it's not true, that's what the paperwork said. Well, who produces the paperwork, and who said she was born?
she says it's from an Uncle Puck box.
Uncle Puck box?
Yes.
What the dickens is that?
There is the first Guardian to mess in human affairs had a network, an underground network of people all over the world who helped her move around, particularly around World War I, World War II. And this first Guardian set up these boxes through a friend of hers, Puck. And they are jokingly called Uncle Puck boxes. And you, as humans, may have actually come across them. What they basically look like either jewelry boxes or money boxes, old briefcases that you find in old subways, airports, train stations, old houses, strange old hotel safety boxes. And inside these Uncle Puck boxes are IDs, money, passports, birth certificates. It's almost like you found someone's personal belongings, but you really can't find who that person is.
Oh.
And that's because these are meant for the Guardian. At that time it was Mercedes. Now it's Charlie. And these things help her move about in our society without having to work with our society.
Interesting.
So anytime you've come across an old box that has all that information, you probably found an Uncle Puck box.
Well, should I leave it for...
Technically, you should leave it alone for the Guardian, but, people find stuff and they get fascinated and, things get moved. That's why there's so many of these boxes, is just in case. Just in case.
It's a Justin case.
Yeah.
What's that briefcase? That's my Justin case.
Yes.
Well, that's awkward because you'd show up and you wouldn't have a box and you'd be thinking, oh, great, now I'm an illegal alien. I have no money for clothes. Or if I found it and it's got a birth certificate for somebody who's born 3 weeks from the time that I found it, like I've got a birth certificate for next month. What the heck? This is interesting.
Yeah.
That's awkward. That is
awkward.
very interesting. That is interesting. So, moving on from the Uncle Puck box, which I've just Googled the heck out of, and I don't think she's right because I can't find it in the Google net. But but that's interesting. That is interesting. So she, in that life, she was told, and again, this is where she got her paperwork from.
Yes.
Thank you. That was my question on that. Carry on.
From there, Charlie, let's see here. If you can find her, somebody probably went to school with her because she registered at Columbia University there in New York about 1990. About 1990.
Under what
to
name?
1994, she would have been in Columbia University.
What's the name she was under?
She would have been Charlie Xavier Holt. Charlize Xavier Holt. So if you knew a Charlie Holt in New York back in the early 90s, you probably knew her.
And that was, University, it was Columbia?
Yep.
Hey, so what did she major in?
Um,
Spiritual studies? Engineering?
No. She actually was neuroscience and archaeology.
Oh, there's something right up her alley.
Yeah.
Let's pick in a couple of courses that are actually, would be easy ones for her. Oh, archaeology? Yeah, I've helped build that, so no problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's very interesting. So from there, from Columbia, off she goes as Charlie Holt.
Yep.
Because I've got that. I'm gonna go see if I can get a transcript from Columbia. It's gonna probably cost me $50. Way to go.
No, let me know what you find, because she's also given me an alternate school that she was at, which would have been Juilliard.
Oh, la-di-da. Learned how to lie.
And it would have been for dramatic acting.
Yep. She learned how to lie.
Yep.
It's a lying. Acting is just lying and getting paid for it. That's interesting. And again, I'm Googling, using the Google Net to find all this stuff.
No, tell me what you find.
So she goes to Juilliard. She does that. And what does she do with the rest of her life, their career at that point, back in the 90s?
Honestly, the communication with us kind of ends about then. Me and her are trying to figure out who exactly... she's introduced me to some individuals who play out in her life, and I'm trying to figure out who they are right now.
Okay. And is that what she's doing right at this moment? Why?
Yeah,
you're dead
that's
quiet?
kind of what we're doing, is she's getting me caught up to date.
Okay. Well, we'll just talk quietly among ourselves. Ish.
So.
Sorry. Just pretend you can't hear me.
No. But do you have any... I mean, there's lots of... Most of her time before she came back through time was spent in Europe, Asia, India. She gave me a list of countries that she's lived in under different names. Alchemy was a big study of hers, as well as various martial arts. Not for much for the fighting, but because there's some strong meditative gifts in there and wisdom that we as humans have forgotten, but is still preserved in these ancient arts. Let's see here if I've got the list of everywhere she's been. She has traveled through China, Japan, Indonesia, Korea, India, Siberia, Greece, Egypt, the Middle East, Canada, Alaska, Australia, Papua New Guinea, New Zealand. She's been among the Navajo, Cherokee, Iroquois, Sioux. She's been the Hawaiian Islands, the Polynesian Islands, Amazonian, Mayan, and Aztec, South America, Cuba, Haiti, Puerto Rico, Africa, the southern end of Africa, Germany, France, and Spain. Damn. She's also been in Ireland, Scotland, and Wales.
I need her air miles. That would have been, that's a good trip. So, I shouldn't say that's a good trip. That's multiple lives, though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Very interesting. Any life events that would have got her into, well, let's say, did she run in a marathon or anything like that? Or do anything in the
Their
public?
job is to stay as low profile as possible. That's what the Guardians do.
Okay.
Their job is not to be seen. That's why they have the Uncle Puck boxes.
Okay. So there I am looking for somebody who was purposely trying to hide themselves.
Yes.
The little weasels. It's interesting that she, as a guardian, deals with that. It has to go through that. How many of these guardians exist and that are bopping through time?
Actually, there are many guardians, one for each galaxy at least, one per galaxy. And then that one has a continuing lifeline. It says one dies, that soul is reincarnated as the next guardian.
Okay. If that happens, how is she there with you after she died?
That's what I'm trying to understand. The best she's explained it. I'm not the guardian. I'm just a voice box for the guardians.
Correct.
So what it is
she saying that to you, that she's a voice box for the guardian?
No, that I am.
Yeah, but she's with
But
you.
what she's explaining is that she lived through this period, came back. There's a part of her that basically her doppelganger, her, is doing things. She used an alchemy thing that resembles a Stargate, ironically, to come back. So she's actually here while we're actually talking about her. She's actually alive, but in the distant future when she dies, she's coming back to let us know what she learned by coming back.
Okay.
It's a very interesting time loop.
It's actually a very simple time loop. It's I understand it. It's when you're dealing with energy, it's confusing because the energy you can't once energy's there, you can't make it, nor can you destroy it. So if her energy, her physical body passes, her energy is still there. But what's confusing is for energies there has been reincarnated. What energy are you talking to? Because there's two energies.
I'm talking to the Charlie one, and I've even talked to the Mercedes one. And I've talked to the previous ones, which is Zonatara and Genesis. And I've also been allowed a little bit of time, very, very, very little time to actually meet the Gaia energy. And Gaia is the first one, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
I'll have to dig out my notebook on
Earth
that
energy. Your notebook, which is the one written on papyrus at the foot of the bed. This guide, we've gone through a bit of a personal history of the guide we call Charlie.
Yes.
Is Charlie a guide for anybody else or just you?
She's actually a guide for others.
So she can also be with them at the exact same time.
Yeah.
Very good. Very good. That gets out there. She's right up there with angels and, unfortunately, demons, where they can be all... There's no... Time doesn't mean anything. So
yeah, time doesn't mean anything.
All over the place. Like we learned last night, the Archangel Michael was here with me at the same time. Was in Oregon probably the same time as he was bouncing around the UK and the Middle East. So he's around. It's a cool thing to be able to do that. You've got Charlie coming to you with a list of things that have to be put forward. That list is taken by some as being could be blasphemous, could be a lie, could be anything negative you can attach to that.
Yeah.
And that is just the way we humans, through whatever reason, we are supposed to react to this.
Yes.
those who have that awakened thing turned on won't take it with such a grain of salt, but they will, like in my case, question some of it. Some will just completely block it and say, nope, not interested, go away. And, they're, you guys can build the ark, I don't really care, I'll be over here. No, I'm not going that. No, I'm not going to go out there with that. But those who are interested, like I say, there's an awful lot of people interested in this topic. Why? Have you asked why you and why at this time?
Yeah, I've been asking that a lot as of late because, out of all honesty, I'm terrified of talking to other human beings. I was shuffled out. I was, when I first met you, I was even singled out at the group where me and you met face to face.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been finding that something has been kind of signaling me out. One of the reasons that I've been told I've been picked is because I myself don't trust what I'm being told. I'm not buying it 100%. I even invite people, yeah, if you can find something on her, show it to me. Please. I sit here for hours in front of my little computer in my sewing room looking for things that Charlie has told me or that Mercedes has told me. I worked with a therapist to help me make sense of a lot of these messages that I've been getting for years, just to make sense of it, to prove that I'm not a little crazy. I mean, last time we talked, I was quoting a lot of books, and I apologize for that, but that's how I've made sense of this, is that I find books that match what I'm being told. I find news articles that match what I'm being told, and because I want people to believe, I share that. But there's also that part of me that's like, I need you to understand, and that's why I've been chosen, is because I am a skeptic.
Yeah, and I know that. That's the that is the that's the interesting part of this. You challenge all this that's coming in too.
Yeah, I believe me. There's some things that come out of my mouth. I did a reading today, and it came out, and the lady looked at me and I said, I am so sorry if I am wrong, because I figured I had just said something absolutely horrid. And she goes, oh God, no, you're right on. She hugged me. She was crying. I gave her some Kleenex and she left. Very nice lady, but I have to be careful.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to make sure that what I share is all about this. It's this thing that's at least going to spark people to do what I'm doing. Okay, Skeeter said this. Let's go online. Let's see what we can find. There's people in here going, oh yeah, she was at Juilliard. What was the name? And I know there are people out there now looking her up, and I'm going, yes! Find that psycho woman. Tell me she's real. Go get her, guys. Go get her. And it's fantastic. Because this is what they want. They want people to challenge it. They want people to look at it. And you guys are doing exactly what she wants.
Yeah.
You're all arguing and challenging and talking, and that's what this is all about. This is what the shift is about. Is this re-inspiration to challenge and look and wonder.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. It comes through that it's always happened this way. If you were to go back in any time and somebody comes out and says, I'm getting information that I've got to actually turn off one of the chat rooms here. It's just there's some really stupid comments in there that's bothering me, and I apologize everybody, because it frustrates me that I can't reach through and do things. I'm trying to center myself. It's I've totally derailed my train of thought. The incidents that this has happened over time, there are always going to be people who look at somebody who's getting information from the other side, who they look at you and say, okay, you're crazy. And that goes back 20 years or even 50 years ago, you would have been put into a nut house saying, there's this lady that comes through and she talks to me in my head about stuff that's going to happen. And we finally got to a point in the last 10 or 15 years where this is very public, which is amazing because in the chat room, we're getting people who have listened to this show for 2 years almost saying, well, are you crazy? It's like what? You have psychics come on here all the time that you communicate with and bring you information, but now in this specific vein, this is completely different. I don't understand. And that is the hill that we have to climb. That's our challenge from Dave Scott and I, is to bring information to the public from people like you over time, where you've said, okay, this is a psychic, this person is a medium for information that is coming to me about someone who's passed, somebody, the typical, am I going to get a boyfriend, am I going to get a job, not what are the lottery numbers, but the, life as an individual, life as one of the billions of people on this planet, some little bit of a look into what happens after death. And then when we take this next step with the exact same spirit guide, projecting not for us individually, but for us as a species, we take that as, no, you can't do that. You only have to give information on an individual basis, not on a global basis, because it's our information when you read for me, but we cannot accept information on a global basis. Or even, this town was going to catch fire. Well, that's no, we don't want to know that because that's a town. It's way bigger than me, my individual, my ego, my connection with the paranormal, the spiritual, the psychic. And that's the jump that Dave and I are using for this radio show, but you are also experiencing as basically an introvert who has this come through. And I mean, a lot of psychics that I know are introverts. Joanna Banka, Joanna the medium, introvert, started off as introvert. Now she's actually moving into public speaking. She has more to say as a life coach than she does as a psychic medium now. She's graduated into the next step, and it's taken her a long time to get there.
Yeah.
With you, this has all been pretty quick.
Yeah, it's been kind of an avalanche.
Yeah. And we talked about that. Now let's move, unless there's a little bit more on Charlie's timeline. I'd like to get into the event in California that you went to and what happened, and let's in detail on what happened. Now she's done some drawings, and they're on there's a Facebook web page for this show. It's called the Shift. If it's a public page, just go to the Shift and you'll see photographs of the drawings that Skeeter did of this ship that went over top of her head, and then walk us through what happened in your communications with beings who were a little bit disgruntled about Charlie passing on this information.
This was in California. It was shortly after I did the shift there in California with you all. And I was mad at my mother-in-law. I was there on the trip with my mother-in-law. I was furious at her. We were doing energy healing work. It was, it's a very raw, open moment. I'm out in the car, and I don't know if I was falling asleep or I was just coming out of my anger coma. But through the sunroof, this light just started, and there's construction workers staying at the hotel we are, so that they can go to work the next day. And so there's lots of people up and moving at this time. And above me is this, it's almost like a gold, coppery, rusted out, it's got greens and golds and coppers, this massive, round, flat-bottomed spaceship. And the hotel's probably 2 stories high. It's probably 4 stories above us. And I'm sitting there going, this is a dream. I'm lucid dreaming. I'm hallucinating. I'm looking around at the construction workers who are standing out by the pool and the building that has the food in it. And they're looking up, and I'm going, oh man, this is a really freaky, weird dream. This is amazing. I don't know what this is. This is a dream. There's these lights. There's this wind. It's not even really a wind. It's like standing in front of a bass speaker. You can't hear the sound, but you can feel that whoo, 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 whoo coming at you.
Yeah.
And these lights, God, they were beautiful. They're these really soft, beautiful bluish lighting. And I mean, it's just, everything is saved in my mind. I'm still working on the drawings, adding more and more detail. And something, I don't know what happened, but it's like something or someone put me asleep. And I wake up and I look to my right. Now, for those of you who don't know, I'm actually blind on the right side. Normally when I dream, I can see out of the right side. I can actually see out of both eyes. Even when I'm astral projecting, I can see out of both eyes. I looked to my right. I couldn't see out of my right side. I had to turn my head all the way so that the left eye could see what was next to me. And what was next to me was not human. It was, and please be aware, I wasn't panicked. The amazing thing was that I was calm. It was like I was this Zen calm, just this extreme calm. And I looked next to me, and there is this being. And I'm looking at him going, okay, this is new. And I can't tell you if he said shh or if he hissed. But he's beautiful. I mean, don't get me wrong, he's scary, but it's this beautiful, rich, ambery green scales, ridges that start up by the cheekbones and go up around the eyes, off the side of the head, and just these amazing deep brown, like clear ambery eyes with just streaks of gold. And next thing, and it's like, okay, he's okay, whatever. And I wake up, and I'm not in the car anymore. I'm in my bed, and I've been dealing with this. And as those of you know from the other show, I work with Forest Moon Paranormal, and I had a fellow team member help me with this because it's been building in my head. And she did some work for me. She's an amazing psychic who's proven her worth with the team, so I totally trusted her. And she said he was there to stop me from sharing this information. In fact, he was really upset with me for even drawing the ship and even talking about them, that I technically wasn't supposed to see the ship because I have such an eye for detail, and it's upsetting them that I'm adding so much of the detail to my drawing and sharing it with all of you. And the fact that I'm even talking about him, and the fact that I even brought him up to Forest Moon Paranormal, or the fact that I brought it up to James, they're trying really hard to block it off, and that's why I've for the past probably 4 or 5 days, I've felt like someone churned me off. And this fellow psychic from Forest Moon was very kind and broke the psychic connection and put a shield around me so that I could get back to work and do what I'm doing for you guys.
Mm-hmm.
I've never had an experience like this before. Never. And I'm still trying to wrap my head around it.
What does Charlie think this being is?
I've asked Charlie. She's been a little mum on it. I asked the psychic, and she says that some of the feelings that I've had about this alien is because me and him were together in a past life, and one of my past lives, and I'm still wrapping my head around this, is one of the Guardian past lives, and that's why they're going, no, you need to be quiet, you know more than you should, and they're not ready for this.
Well, is it that you know more than you should? Because we're only getting information from Charlie.
We're only getting information from Charlie, and that's what I'm trying to figure out is how do I play into this? And this is what I've been asking Charlie. Other than being a skeptic, what else is there? What else is why me? Why are all these others? I know many of us have Mercedes bloodline in us. She had many children who went on to have more children and more children. So there are those of us who are related to Mercedes. Charlie hasn't told me if she's had children or not.
Okay.
So I'm still learning. And as soon as I figure it out, I will let you know.
Is Charlie still hanging out with you right as we speak?
She is. She's sitting on the table, the sewing table behind me.
Oh, well, tell her not to fall off. The curious, I got a question for Charlie. There's a meteor pummeling through space right now, and it'll be coming close to Earth on the 25th. Does she know anything about that? Is it going to bump, or how close it's going to get?
It's going to skip. We'll probably see some meteor showers off of it, but it won't actually affect us.
Okay, interesting. Then it's I've been outside as a kid and saw a pretty good sized meteor skip off the atmosphere, and it was like fireworks. It was amazing. In fact, that's what we thought it was when we first looked up, and then heard later that it was a meteor had just skipped off the atmosphere, coming in on a bit of an angle.
Yeah,
we're kind of lucky that way. To get in, they've got to hit at a certain angle and and usually they break up into little bits and pieces too. I got one more question for Charlie. A friend of mine and she's having tremors. And Charlie, I'm looking at her name right now, so I don't want to say it out loud, but my friend's kind of developed tremors. Is this something that's going to go away?
Only once she starts realizing that the information that she's getting when the tremors occur is actually true. The tremors are actually a sign that she's being stressed. And that there is a what's the word? There's a battle in her mind going over, no, this is not right. This isn't the right information. This doesn't fit with what I know.
Oh.
It's that human brain trying to take in this celestial thought.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah. Interesting. That is.
So once she
very,
comes
very
to a point with that, they'll go away.
Good. It's nice to have those things happen the way they do. It's interesting. It is interesting. It's funny as we kind of come into this. We get this information as we're kind of connecting to those things. We'll call it anywhere from the other side to, like when we do paranormal investigations, we start communicating or getting communications from the other side of what we call the veil, to what you do, or even to a lesser extent what I do when I'm reading somebody's cards. I'm not seeing the entity that I'm getting the information from. I'm just getting the thought. The information comes through. And the confidence that I need to repeat it to the person is the bump that I have to go through. But I know there's people, my daughter, for one, who went through all the stresses and anxieties and loss of sleep when she was, basically getting turned. The switch got turned on in her, and she and I, or her whole family, went through watching her, thinking that she had some medical issue and that she, oppositional defiance disorder, and was supposed to read a book and do all this. We didn't want to put her on medication. Thank goodness they didn't say that. But I took her to my spirit medium and said, "Oh no, she's just a through the roof empath, and give me an hour, I'll teach her how to block." And then the next day, she was no longer diagnosed as oppositional defiant. She was fine. Her all anxiety went away because she understood it. But it's the understanding that it's coming, and the understanding on why it's there, and that you're not crazy. It's just an energy that you have to accept. And once you've accepted, everything becomes very peaceful, which is very cool. Except for you, because you get lizards sitting with you in the car.
That's
that's the next drawing. I know. Going to the shift on Facebook and looking at your picture there, the next picture I'd like you to get done is the being itself. Yeah.
Okay.
And no cheating by going online and building something out of a whole bunch of.
No.
Warner
You
Brothers
guys
or
know
Marvel
me.
Magazine.
Anyone who's seen my work, you all know I draw.
Yeah. It's interesting, and them coming down saying, "Look, you said too much." It's like you belong to a organized crime group, and they're saying, "Look, you've been talking." It's like, what?
That's kind of how it felt.
You're going to be sleeping with the fishes, or in our case, you're going to be sleeping with the lizards. What are you, some kind of...
God, I hope not.
Are you some kind of chameleon? Sorry. It is interesting. What you experience and what you've opened the door to in the shift. And for those of you who haven't caught on yet, this show, The Shift, is on every second Sunday. One Sunday is going to be 2 mediums and a large. The next Sunday is The Shift, 2 mediums and a large, The Shift. So we're going to keep chipping away through that. We touched briefly on it. We wanted to get a little bit more tonight on this economic kind of hiccup. I hate to use the word collapse, but I think that's what's going to happen, because you are not the only one who's brought this up. And which is good, because it kind of says, okay, Skeeter's not completely insane, because unless it's catching, and half a dozen or more other psychics are getting the exact same information and don't want to tell me until I draw it out of them, which is kind of fun. And oh no, you can tell me, it's okay. I've heard this from somebody else. Oh, okay then. And then you say, no, I've never heard that. You're the first one, but now I can use you as an example. It is interesting for me, and it is interesting on a number of levels, is that the information is coming, as Dave Scott kind of predicted a couple of years ago when he was he was told to start up this show, and all the different people that he's been talking to, if you take little bits and pieces out of everybody he's interviewed, from the Bigfoot, investigators, the paranormal investigators, to conspiracy people and ufologists, each person has either a piece of the puzzle or half of the piece of the puzzle that's coming together.
Yeah.
And it's been 2 years, but the puzzle is things are starting to add up. We're starting to, let's say right now, we've got the border done on our puzzle. And we still have a pile, and we are working our way into the middle of this puzzle. Unfortunately, the entire thing is black. Let's say the entire thing is white. That's better. And it's just hard to piece each individual bit of the puzzle together because there's nothing to guide us except little bits of information from you and Charlie and whoever else is going to pop through next week.
Yeah, I mean, even the show before this with Elizabeth, there were a lot of big pieces in that show.
Yes. Yeah, shadow government, trying to keep basically everybody from tuning in, looking for those people we describe as star children and silencing them. And baby Jesus himself. It's very interesting because there was where Richard was saying that the preteen years, the young Jesus was taken away and was studying somewhere, and that comes up again. My buddy Jim, who runs Vancouver Supernatural, he's a huge believer that from the manger to the late 20s, he was studying with a master, and
I've heard that too.
Yeah, out of the Holy Lands, it was like Asia, India, China, that kind of thing, and that's what Richard has developed from his investigations too. It's very interesting, very, very interesting. So, what do you think? You feeling good?
I'm feeling good, but I'm really worried about what I'm going to see tonight.
Well, you know what? Have yourself a little bit of medicine. I think it's called tequila. No, don't have the tequila. You have a wonderful night. And if you want to get a hold of Skeeter, go to Skeeter.
BlueMoonWeaver@gmail.com.
BlueMoonWeaver@gmail.com. What a night that was. I'm going to go erase everything in the chat room. Love you, Skeeter. And for everybody out there, for goodness sakes, keep an open mind.
It's our last goodbye. Young hearts will stop. Torn souls set free. All that we have is now. If this is what you want, then come to me.
All right, that's it. Let's roll. And hey! Let's be careful out there.
Far over the snow, what are those voices? They sing and they go. What are those voices? Look over the mountains. Because somebody hide, somebody better hide on through the hill, like a pack of angry wolves on the trail. We are after you, dead or alive. We are out to get you, dead or alive. And forget your soul. If you're the one, better run away. Son, you are done. Throw your gun away. Here come the Mounties to get the man they're after now. Run through the hill like a pack of angry wolves on the trail.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
Dave's not here!
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army. Army officers say the missile, found sometime last week, has been inspected at Roswell, New Mexico, and sent to Wright Field, Ohio, for further inspection.
Greetings. This is Science Officer Spock, and currently there are no life forms available to take your call. But at the prearranged audio signal, please feel free to leave any verbal communication you feel is necessary. Live long and prosper.